Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this video, before we keep watching it, I'm just going to ask that you have some kind of a drink with you, whether or not it is like a coffee, a tea, a glass of water, a can of Coke, or an adult beveragino. Just make sure that you have some kind of drink with you before you continue watching this video. Also, spoilers if you haven't reached chapter 580 yet. This one goes out to all of the friends and the family that we've lost in the story so far, and all of the friends in the family that we will lose in the stories to come. We pour this one out for the homies, and then we have one for ourselves, because a great man once said, "If you share a drink with a man, you become brothers." And from this day forward, we are brothers. To Ace, to Whitebeard, to all those that gave their lives to this cause, to everyone that died before, and to everyone that will give their life after, we salute you. And now that we have shared a drink, from now on, we are brothers. Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another One Piece review, specifically the Marineford Arc. Now this arc was crazy, this arc was just honestly nothing that I was expecting, and if you are watching this when it comes out and you have been following my channel, you would know that I should have released this video last week. I tried, but I was just emotionally not ready. After everything that happened, I was just like, I had to take like a week off to just kind of let everything settle, let everything lie. And I was planning on rereading the entire arc, but I was just like, oh, that's going to be so rough to do, so I didn't. But instead, I've saved a whole bunch of panels, so we're going to be talking a lot, we're going to be discussing a lot of panels. I don't usually discuss heaps of panels, but we're going to be doing that in this one. Also, I do expect this video to be a little bit longer than my usual ones, so at some point my battery will die, and then I'll have to recharge it. So if at some point it does go from day to night or day to day and I'm wearing something different, don't be alarmed. Alright, first things first, we obviously have to talk about the two major deaths that happen in this one. That being Ace and Whitebeard, right? And I gotta tell you what, I was not expecting either of them to die. I was like, maybe Whitebeard might die because they have been kind of building him up as being like a sick man. He, always had the like oxygen thing up his nose, and like he was from a bygone age, so he was a bit older, and maybe he was losing each edge or whatever. And I did mention either in my last video or the one before that I could see, Whitebeard being killed, and then that would cause chaos in the pirating world as they all try to become infamous and to fill Whitebeard's place as like King of the Seas or whatever his grand title was. Also, I'm pretty sure I know what Ace's tattoo means now, right? Because in this one we saw that Ace's band of pirates was the Spade Pirates, right? So Ace was part of the Spade's pirate crew, right? Is that what the S stands for? He was the Ace and he had the Spades, but once he joined Whitebeard's crew, he was no longer part of the Spades Pirates, so he crossed it out, right? That's what the S stands for, and that's why the S is crossed out, because he was the Ace of Spades, part of the Spades Pirates. Nailed it. But I've put it off for long enough. Let's move on and let's talk about Ace's death. I was not expecting it. I was not expecting it at all. I said in, one of my other reviews, I was like, oh yeah, Luffy's gonna get there, he's gonna like save him, there's gonna be like this, that, and the other. And then I mentioned, like, could you imagine if they killed Ace off? Like, could you imagine what a wider implication on the story that would have if Ace was killed off? If Luffy reached out to him but couldn't quite get to him and then they executed him, like what a thing that would do to the story. What a fucking catalyst that would be for the story to have Ace actually be killed, and then they actually killed him. But the way that they actually killed him was so great as well, because they gave you the false hope. They gave you this idea that Whitebeard was sacrificing himself so that his crew could get away, and that Ace and Luffy could get away. And up until that point, there was always this idea in the back of your head of like, okay, you know what, these are the good guys, there's no way that they're going to kill off Ace right now. And then, like, when it gets to that bit, you're like, okay, cool, this is it. They're, like, actually getting away. This is it. Whitebeard's done his, like, earthquake thing. He's separated the pirates from the Marines. There's no way they can get to him. They're safe. They're getting out of this. But then the magma guy comes and starts fighting with Ace, and, like, that whole thing happens. And you're like, you know what? It's going to be fine. Ace is made out of fire. Nothing can affect fire. It's fine. But then you get the explanation that old mate's made out of magma, which consumes fire. So it turns out things aren't going to be fine. And just the way that that whole part was written, in where, like, you know, you have the emotional roller coaster of Luffy finally being able to reach Ace, of, like, the key gets shattered by the guy shooting the light beam at it. You know, then Mr. 3 is suddenly there, and he's got the wax key, and you're like, oh wow, that's super convenient, but whatever, I love it, let's get Ace the hell out of here. And you're just like, cool, Ace has been saved by the convenience and the ridiculousness of One Piece, but then it turns around, and it's such a human emotion, and it's such a human way for Ace to be caught up in someone talking shit about his family, and someone talking shit about his, like, father, that he's just about to watch be executed so that he can get away. You know, it's like just the raw human emotion that is displayed here, not only in Ace wanting to, like, stand up for his family, but, like, after that, when he's dying and you just see Luffy, and oh man, it's so heartbreaking. And, like, that scene, and, like, Luffy's just, like, screaming up at the sky, and when I saw it, I was like, I really want to see this scene play out in the anime, but at the same time, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear Luffy's just, like, scream of sorrow, of just how much sorrow he would have holding his brother while he dies, you know? Like, that's just... oh man, I'm, like, tearing up just remembering how I felt when I was reading it. Like, a couple of times I just had to, like, close my laptop and just, like, take a step back and just be like, oh my god, what the hell is actually happening here? I cannot believe they actually killed off Ace. And just to, like, Ace wasn't really that big of a character in the series, right? Which is the really interesting part. But the parts that you did see him, he was incredibly likable. And the other parts were that he meant so much to Luffy. And because Luffy means so much to us, to, like, see him suffer through this is just such a painful experience. But we'll talk about that a little later as well when I start throwing up panels, because I've saved, like, a couple of panels in regards to that. But one of the things that I will mention is I was taking notes. At some point, I actually stopped taking notes while I was reading this, because I got super into it, and I was like, you know, like, clicking through, just like, what happens next, what happens next. So I stopped taking notes after a certain point. But some of the notes that I was taking were really revolving around Ace and what I would predict to be his, like, coming story arc, which, as we know, is now nothing. And I think that that was one of the other reasons why Ace's death came as such a shock, because his story arc was being built up to be something that could be very, very interesting, in the fact that he was, you know, a good dude, but he had the blood of, like, this tyrant inside of him. And so growing up, he always had that internal conflict of, like, should I have ever been born? And am I a monster for just being alive? And I predicted that his arc would be all about, like, making positive change in the world. Or, like, maybe finding out that Gold Roger wasn't actually a bad dude after all, so his bloodline wasn't, like, tainted after all. And so it was fine that he was born, because he wasn't born to a monster. He wasn't a monster himself just for being born. And I predicted that that would have been his, like, long-term storyline. So, you know, they really, like, Oda really set up this guy's storyline to, like, potentially have a lot of really interesting and a lot of influential stuff happen, which I think was really clever to do, because that is good story writing, to, like, set stories to each of your characters, even if you never see them again, and even if they are to die. But also, as the reader, it's like, okay, you know what, they've set up so much information around this guy, and they've set up so much of his, like, long-term goals, that it would make literally zero sense to kill him off right now. But then they do. And I'm just like, I can't wait to see how Luffy starts dealing with this, like, emotional trauma that he's gonna have to go through, right? Because obviously, Oda is a friggin' fantastic writer, right? There is no way that he is not going to put Luffy through some form of emotional trauma, having his brother die in his arms, and failing his brother, right? That's the other thing. Up until this point, I don't really recall Luffy really failing anything, right? Especially something as important as saving his brother's life. Even though, like, he technically did save him, but, you know, then he died afterwards. And I've brought it up, you know, a few times, actually, the whole, like, Luffy not being a great leader, but then kind of growing into becoming a great leader. You know, I've brought it up with the whole Vivre thing. I bring it up with the princess all the time, where she, like, humbled Luffy and was like, you need to put your crew first, you need to think about others, like, your actions are directly affecting people. And then Luffy was like, oh crap, you're right, I do need to think about these things. And I bring that up all the time because that was such a great growth moment for Luffy, and people told me that Luffy doesn't really grow through this series, so I was really thoroughly impressed when I saw that. Now, this will surely be another one of those moments. This will surely be another one of those moments that I comment and talk about a lot going into the future. You know, not only Luffy dealing with the emotional trauma of losing someone so close to him, but also Luffy dealing with the fact that he failed to save his brother. Now, from a wider storytelling standpoint, I am actually, you know, glad that they killed off Ace, and I'm glad that they killed off Whitebeard. You know, that sounds so dumb to say, because emotionally I was just, like, fucked after I found out, like, Ace died, and then you see Luffy and all that. Like, I was just ruined after that. But from a storytelling standpoint, and from a, like, grayness of the future standpoint, that is fantastic, because it means that they are not afraid to do whatever it is that they want to do. Oda can, like, Game of Thrones the shit out of this, right? If he wants to kill someone, he can kill someone. You know, there isn't that fear that we need to keep people alive because they are, you know, crowd pleasers, because they are crowd favorites. He now has the, like, courage and the freedom to tell any story that he wants to tell, and you know, he knows that his audience will support him and love him regardless of how much emotional damage that he causes to them. Which really frees up the author to tell any story he wants to tell, which really frees up us as the readers to enjoy and experience these stories as he wants to tell them. But, god damn, I was not expecting it. I thought, like, you know, maybe while he was still on the platform and the guys were there with the swords, and Luffy's trying to get to him, and I think it's just before Luffy uses his, like, Haki ability to, like, blow him away or something. And the guy's like, do the execution, and they lift up their swords, and they're there, and they're about to, like, cut his head off, and Luffy's like, stop, and, like, blows them away. I thought right then, that was, like, the moment I was like, oh shit, this is actually gonna happen. Like, this is actually where he gets his head cut off, and, like, it's the end. But then, as soon as Luffy, like, Haki'd them and, like, blew them away, I was like, oh, okay, that's it. There's no way Ace will die in this arc. Like, that is it. That was the moment that if he was to die, he would have died, right? But then they save him to give your heart that, like, roller coaster kind of thing, you know, takes off the tension. You're like, okay, Ace is safe. The boys were fighting together. It looked really cool. It was really exciting. So they're safe. They're getting out of here. Everything's going to be fine. And I talk about this a lot as well, the, like, roller coaster of storytelling. You know, you can't just keep building tension, keep building tension. You have to build it up, drop it off, build it up, drop it off. And that's how you really engage the reader and get them to really enjoy what you're writing. And it was a textbook example of that, right? Because in that moment, that tension is so high, and then Luffy Hakis them, blows them away, releases the tension, and I, as the reader, am like, okay, cool. I see, there's no way that Ace is going to die here, but then the tension dials up again as you see, like, Whitebeard getting ready to sacrifice himself, and the boys are getting away, and at that point you do like Whitebeard so much, because he's, like, a great father. You know, you learn how much he means to Ace, and you already like Ace a lot because you know how much he means to Luffy, and because he's a cool dude. And so the tension's already building as, like, you know, Whitebeard's been stabbed through the chest and he's, like, clearly about to sacrifice himself and die. And so that tension's building. But then it just gives you that curveball of Ace dying as well. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at here is I'm just, like, a confused ball of conflicted emotions. I'm both glad and sad that Ace died. I'm glad because from a storytelling standpoint, this opens Oda up to do whatever the hell he wants. And I've been talking about how, like, I've noticed that One Piece has been going more like darker. One Piece is becoming more like adult or darker or like intense, I guess is the better word. So this really is that crowning achievement of that intensity so far in the story. So I'm wondering if, you know, that intensity will just like drop off as we go and cross the red line, and then slowly it will build back up. Or I wonder if that intensity will drop a little, but then the intensity will keep going up. Alright, before I move into the next part of the video where I start putting up panels and we'll start like discussing the panels, there are a couple of things that I want to bring up. First of all, I'm going to do a review of the entire first half of the saga, pre-Red Line saga, whatever. I need to know what I call it. What do you call the chapters up to chapter 600 or whatever, like pre-crossing over into the new world or something? Like, is there a specific name that people use for that, so I can title my video like, you know, bloody pre-new world review and discussion or something? I don't know. So I'm going to do a big, probably like a longer video regarding that. I'll probably touch on each of the like arcs just a little bit. I'll talk about like my favorite parts, my least favorite parts, the emotional bits, you know, how I feel that each of the characters has grown, where I expect the characters to end up in the next 600 chapters or whatever. All of my predictions around like One Piece and Gold Roger and all of that stuff. So what I would like to know is, first of all, what is that referred to as? Something like pre-New World or something? Is that a thing? Is that what you guys call it? The other thing is, do you guys have any questions that you want me to answer in a review like that? You know, if you have any questions, feel free to like preface your question in the comments as like QFV, questions for video, and I will like pick maybe 10 questions or something to answer in that upcoming review. The other thing is, I actually had someone reach out to me by email, and they asked to remain anonymous, so that's what I'm going to do. And they specifically said to me something along the lines of, you know, I know that you're reading the colored versions right now, but if you're going so deep into the analytics, you're going so deep into the specific things that people are saying, then you should read the black and white version, the specific one that Oda said is the correct interpretation of what he's doing, because that way, you know, you're not going to be a victim to the bad translations, and you're more free to analyze exactly what people are saying. Is that true? Is that, like, specifically, is the translation really that bad? Just because, you know, I do prefer reading the colored version because it is very pretty, and I do like the depth that it adds to the pictures. But is it actually that bad of a translation that I am missing things or misinterpreting things? Because I know that, like, Oz, or whatever that guy's name was, I'm pretty sure that people were telling me his name was actually Oz. Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't remember. Anyway, please let me know. Please let me know, should I move over to the black and white version or not? The other thing is, I said in one of my other videos that, like, you know, I can't wait till I'm all caught up, and then I will do the weekly chapter reviews. Like, I think that's what the current One Piece YouTubers are doing right now. So I'm going to do the same thing, you know, the weekly chapter reviews. But up until this point, I was just like, how interesting could that really be, right? Like, how much could you really talk about with like a weekly chapter review? And I haven't looked up any other YouTubers like One Piece chapter reviews, because one, apparently they're rife with spoilers. People have been like complaining so much about it recently. There's like One Piece YouTubers are putting like heaps of spoilers in their thumbnails. So I'm just like trying to not tell the algorithm I want it at all. I'm just like, no, don't show me anything. So I have no idea how long they generally make their videos, but up until this point I was like, how much stuff could you possibly talk about? But then reading this like arc, I was like, oh my god, each chapter, I like looked at it and I went back and I was like, there's a lot that happens in these chapters. There's a lot of speculation that you could do, and I guess that's what the chapter reviews are. They're like speculations. They're like, hey, look, this guy said this here, so I'm presuming what that means is this, right? So now I'm kind of like, I really wish I was all caught up so I could do these chapter reviews and just speculate the hell out of it. And just one more thing before I move on to throwing the panels up and talking about the panels. I really liked the fact that the other Straw Hat members weren't part of this arc. I really liked the fact that they kind of blew them all away, and then it was just Luffy, and we just got Luffy at Impel Down, and we just got Luffy here trying to save Ace. I did really enjoy that, because then there wasn't anyone around to take away from just Luffy. Like, it really ramped up that connection that we had with Luffy, because everyone that Luffy was dealing with, we knew that we weren't really going to be seeing a future with them, so we didn't really have to particularly pay that much attention to them. But if we were with the Straw Hats, you know, everyone would kind of have their own little story arcs, everyone would kind of have their own little growth moments and all of that, because that's what Oda does. So the fact that Luffy was running around with, say, Buggy, he was running around with, you know, Crocodile and, you know, the Okama and all of them, you knew that these were all people that, although you would probably see them again in the future, and they have their own, like, desires and wants and needs and all of that, you didn't really have to pay too much attention to it, and they didn't really need any growth moments. So we really got so much more alone time with Luffy, and we really got to connect with Luffy a lot more, which made when Luffy lost Ace just that much more, like, emotional damage, because, you know, he was the only one of the crew that we'd, like, done anything with in the last 100 chapters, right? Because we had fucking Boa Hancock's Island, I can't remember the name of that one, and then we had Impel Down, and then we had this one, right? So that's 3 arcs, that's like 100 chapters of just Luffy, of just Luffy's mission, of just Luffy's growth and dreams and goals, and his, like, nothing can stop me willpower, and, you know, just to see all that and just to be immersed in it for so long, and then just to have it all broken and crash down and just die. It was so great. So I did really enjoy the fact that, you know, the Straw Hats were not together for that arc. But it does make me wonder how they'll all get back together, right? Because I believe that the next arc is, like, the post fucking Marineford arc or something, I don't know. And I imagine that we're just going to see the, like, aftermath of everything, and, like, see Luffy wake up and have to, like, deal with the information. And kind of, I really hope that Boa Hancock is there. I hope that she's there and is, like, patiently, like, waiting on him and whatever, just, like, kind of helping him through the emotional damage of losing his brother. And if Boa Hancock is there for Luffy in his darkest times, then I will, like, super ship them. But it also makes me wonder if, you know, we're going to get, like, maybe 5 chapters of each character coming from whatever island they're on to the Shibondi Archipelago or whatever, and they'll all meet back there, because I believe that their ship is still there, and I believe that their ship is still fine there. So I imagine that they all have to make their way back there to get it coated with bubbles so they can take it to the Fishman Island. That was my seamless transition. It is now the next day. My camera is fully charged, so let's talk about these panels. So this is the first panel that I wanted to talk about. Now, I originally saved this panel because I wanted to talk about the fact that, you know, you see in the second cell down, there's Garp and the other fella, and he says, "I'm going to tell them everything, alright, Garp?" And Garp says, "Do what you want, I'll be below." Now, originally, when I first saved this was kind of at the beginning of the arc, I saved this because I wanted to talk about how, you know, Garp is kind of going through this emotional roller coaster of, like, saying goodbye to his grandson, and although he's immensely proud of, like, them becoming great men, he's, you know, conflicted because they are going against everything that he stands for and everything that he believes in and everything that he wanted them to become. And I was originally going to talk about that, which I did really enjoy in this arc. I really enjoyed the conflicted nature of Garp in this arc. And you really see it when he puts on that front when Luffy is running up to save Ace. And I'm pretty sure I've got the panel, so I'm pretty sure we'll talk about this in a little bit. But when he is there and he gets in front of Luffy and he's like, "No, you are my enemy, you're a pirate, I am, you know, this rank, I am a marine, I am a high-ranking marine, I must stop you, you are my enemy, don't come any closer." but then like you see in that moment he lets Luffy hit him and knock him away, because although he has to put on the show that, like, you know, he's not betraying the Marines, he really doesn't want to stand in the way of Luffy saving Ace. Really loved that entire thing, and I've been talking about it in the past couple of arcs. I really enjoy the interaction with Garp and Luffy and Ace, and how he is, you know, he really disagrees with everything that they're doing, but he's immensely proud of the great men that they've become. But just on rereading this panel, you know, in order to discuss it, it's really interesting that the head Marine guy says, "I'm going to tell them everything, alright, Garp?" Now, in the moment when you're first reading that, you know, you don't really understand what that means, because you haven't been given the context that Ace is Gold Roger's son and all of that. Which also brings me on to another point. I said in one of my other videos that they hadn't really justified the war yet. They hadn't really justified, like, why they specifically wanted Whitebeard, why they specifically wanted to use Ace to lure in Whitebeard so they could kill Whitebeard. And I thought it was something more along the lines of, you know, Whitebeard represented something, and he was like a figurehead of, you know, this kind of tenuous peace, because he represents a goal that everyone is working towards. And if they cut the head off that goal, if they remove that goal, then everyone will fight in order to bring their esteem up and fill his position of King of the Seas. And then that would in turn allow the world government to justify using the ancient weapons against the pirates and cement their power and cement their control over everything because of the chaos that they've caused. That's originally what I thought the justification for the war was. So it was really interesting to find out that the justification with this war had nothing to do with Whitebeard at all, right? It wasn't that, you know, Whitebeard was this great pirate, and he, you know, was the figurehead of the King of the Seas and a goal and blah, blah, blah and all that. It was actually about Ace, which was something that I was not expecting at all. I did not expect it to be about Ace or about his bloodline or about removing the bloodline of Gold Roger from the world. But just with that, they've really set themselves up for like a spin-off of One Piece where, like, you know, Ace has fathered a child and, you know, has been executed, and then Ace's child still has Gold Roger's blood in it and can go and, I don't know, find One Piece if Luffy fails, right? Just a thought. Next we have this panel here. So this is the one where, you know, we get the reveal that Ace is actually Gold Roger's son. And we get the moment where you see Garp reflecting on his final conversation with Gold Roger, and Gold Roger says, "My unborn child bears no sins, Garp. Take care of my boy." And you see the initial moments, like on Ace's face specifically, when he is struggling with the identity crisis, or the crisis of, like, should I have ever been born? Am I a monster for just being born? And you see it on his face where he's just like, you know, God damn it, why did he have to say it? Why did he have to bring it up? Why couldn't they just, like, put me out of my misery? You know, I should never have been born. I'm a piece of crap just because of my bloodline. So this was a great panel to reveal everything and give us the foreshadowing for what happened later on. Especially one of my favorite parts, you know, one of my favorite tropes in storytelling is the honor among enemies kind of thing. And this one had a lot of it between Gold Roger and Whitebeard, which I have another panel coming up, and between Garp and Gold Roger as well. And I really liked that honor among enemies theme in this one. Alright, on this next panel we see, like, the media coverage, we see them, we see how the world's reacting to finding out that Ace is Gold Roger's son. And specifically I wanted to bring this panel up because you see down the bottom there, you know, a guy that we can presume is a reporter, and it's like, you know, Ace is Gold Roger's son, this is huge news, send it to the main office right away, make it an extra edition. And you see the guy, and he's got his quill, and he drops it, and he says, "It still lives, the Pirate King's bloodline." But I'm just like, why is this one guy in particular? Like, why is it specifically? And I'm just like, will this come back up again? Is this some guy with a vendetta against the bloodline? Or does he, like, owe something to the bloodline? Or is this just for, like, dramatic effect? But I'm like, it feels like there should be something more to this, that, like, this guy is so, like, petrified or shocked at the bloodline. Like, you know, did he lose people to Gold Roger, or does he owe a debt to Gold Roger's bloodline, or something like that? I feel as if there is something more to this panel. Alright, this is the other panel I was talking about, and this is the trope that I really love, this honor among enemies one. You see Garp and Gold Roger talking to each other behind bars, And Gold Roger says, Garp, I'm going to have a kid. It's too bad I'll be gone by then. And Garp says, I'm a Marine. Why are you telling me that, Roger? All the women connected to you are going to be executed. And he says, that's why I'm telling you. The government will be all over my footsteps for the next year. If they find her, she'll be killed. But my unborn child bears no sins, Garp. We've faced each other dozens of times in battle. That makes us comrades, right? I trust you as much as one of my own crew. Protect him. And Garp says, don't be so selfish. And he says, no, you'll do it. Take care of my child. That's something that I really love. I really love that, Gold Roger and Garp, they faced each other dozens of times in combat, just as they said, and through that combat, they became comrades. I feel like we should also take a moment to talk about Ace's mother, as, that is probably what Ace would have wanted us to do. It was really interesting that she held on to Ace, like she kept him in the womb for much longer, because the government was running around executing people. I don't know if they were taking kids or executing kids or something. Anyone that was around the right age and had some kind of ties with Gold Roger in these specific towns were all just being executed because they could potentially be carrying Gold Roger's bloodline. And I guess that's an issue because maybe his bloodline might have the ability to read poneglyphs. Is that how that works? Is that a bloodline ability? But anyway, surely the Haki ability would be passed down through bloodlines. I don't know, I feel like they haven't really gone too much into detail. I feel like Oda hasn't really gone too much into detail about what is genetically passed on, like Haki, spirit and will, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you could presume it. This was a panel I found really interesting, and I feel like this was a reference back to the government winning the original war. And basically, it's the Flamingo guy, and he's saying, whoever stands at the top can define right and wrong as they see it. Right now we stand in neutral territory. Justice will prevail. Well, sure it will. Whoever prevails is justice. And I really like that because I feel like that is a big reference back to the government winning the original war, and then they become the justice in the world. They could have very well been the pirates. They could have very well been the bad guys. But, history is written by the victor, and they won, which makes them the new justice, and it makes them the system in the world. And I feel like that was a direct reference back to that original war. So I wonder if later on, when we find out more about the secret lost history and all of that, I wonder if there's going to be any kind of symbolism or throwbacks to this scene, to this fight, with this thing here that looks so much like a reference to the original war. Alright, now I wanted to bring up this panel, right? So I had an interesting question about this one, right? So this is when they're all stuck on top of that big wave. They've just fallen out of the sky and they're stuck up there. And, they have the idea of sliding down the mountain. And Buggy is like, what? Slide down the frozen wave ship and all? How are we going to do that? You're dumb, this is silly, whatever. And then Luffy yells at him and says, if we all work together, we can do it. And Buggy says, I suddenly have the feeling I can do this. Is that part of Luffy's Haki? Is that because he has the Conqueror or the King's Haki or whatever it's called? Is that part of his ability to inspire people, to control people? Because so far we've seen him blow people away and we've seen people faint. Is that also part of the Haki to rally people and be yes, yeah, you know what, I can do this, and bring them up? I don't know, just a question that I had. Alright, so this is the last panel. This is the panel right at the very end. And we see Shanks there, and he says, Whitebeard, Ace, we'll take care of their burials. This battle was broadcast to the entire world. I won't allow anyone to desecrate their memories. And the Marines say, what? Taking their heads will show the Marines victory. And the Fleet Admiral says, since it's you, Red Hair, I'll take responsibility for it. And Shanks says, thanks. And then we get the end where it's the war is over. What is the deal with Shanks, right? Because I've noticed that Shanks has this he has some kind of respect or air of authority about him, and he has been going around and getting into places that a lot of high class people are at, right? When he gets in, he talks to Whitebeard, or when he's dealing with the Marines, and they say, because it's you, since it's you, Red Hair, I will take responsibility for it. And that's what the Fleet Admiral says to Shanks. So I'm like, what is it specifically that Shanks has? Like, what is this air of authority that he has that the fleet admiral is like, oh, it's you? Then yeah, we'll take responsibility for it. You take the bodies, that's it. We don't need to take their heads, right? And surely it's not just because he's one of the 4 emperors, right? Because wouldn't that make them enemies? And why would then the fleet admiral take responsibility for it? Like, is that just a way of saying like, oh, okay, look, I get it. You're one of the 4 emperors. We don't want to like have to start another fight with one of the 4 emperors and your crew, you know, like let's just, cool, you take them. We've already won. You take the bodies, go bury them. We don't need to start a second war right now. This part here I thought was really great as well. Because earlier in the story we see Kobe and he's like running away from the fight and he's like, you know, planning on deserting. He's like, people are dying. I can't do this. I can't be in this fight. I'm gonna die. I just gotta go. And then he comes back and, you know, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something like, you know, stop the fighting. You know, the pirates are already running away. Like, we're just throwing away lives on both sides. The war's already over. Like, just stop. And, you know, then the Marine Admiral or whatever he is like, oh, you know, you showed cowardice. You showed weakness. You've betrayed the Marines. And he goes to, like, go and kill Kobe, but Shanks jumps in and blocks it. I really liked that. I really liked everything to do with Kobe. I kind of really do hope that Kobe gets out of the Marines right now. I kind of hope that, like, you know, they've all turned against him and he's like, okay, I've got to bail. I'm going to go and join a, you know, Shanks Pirates crew, probably. And I really enjoyed the fact that Shanks just rocked up. Like, that was so weird. I was like, oh, okay, sure. Yep, Shanks is here now as well. I mean, it makes sense. You know, there's a lot of big dick players around here. It makes sense for Shanks to rock up as well. Now, this one was a really important panel for me because you see the description and it says they've won, but they thirst for more, right? So this is the moment that, like, it really clicked for me that the Marines had, like, thoroughly won this fight. They'd thoroughly won this war, right? Because they'd killed Whitebeard, which was, like, the secondary objective, and they'd killed Shanks. So all in all, as a Marine victory, this was 100%, like, they won it. And it was so bizarre to me because, like, you know, technically they're the good guys, technically they're the bad guys. So it was so bizarre for me to, like, see the enemy actually win, but not only win, but, like, win so thoroughly in this war. And it was this panel that it, like, really kind of just clicked for me. It was like, oh, wow, they've, like, actually won this, but, like, they've smashed it out of the park. They killed Whitebeard and Ace together. And that was honestly a really weird feeling for me, like, you know, especially, like, after you've just seen Ace die and you've just seen Whitebeard die. And I didn't expect to like Whitebeard as much as I did, but I really did. He was smart and he was a good family man. You know, those are two things that I really enjoy in good storytelling. So I was actually kind of sad when Whitebeard died. But yeah, it was this moment that I was like, wow, like, they've actually won this war. Like, the Straw Hat crew or, like, you know, the pirates or whatever that have come to save Ace, they'd all lost. But, like, devastatingly lost that war. So that was a really interesting moment for me. This is another really interesting panel. This is, I believe it's just before Kobe says, like, hey, everyone stop fighting, you know, what are we doing? Why are we hunting down people? Because Kobe's going through something with his head and you know, the guy's like, hey, Kobe, what's the matter? And he says, I don't know. It's sad. Inside my head, the voices are disappearing one by one. So as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure Kobe hasn't been explained having any kind of, like, secret power. I'm pretty sure it hasn't been explained that he's eaten, like, a devil fruit that, like, allows him to sense people around him or anything. So I can only presume that Kobe has some kind of Haki ability that, I don't know, lets him sense other people or read minds or something. I don't know. I don't really know. But I presume that he's got some kind of powerful Haki ability, and that's what we're seeing unfold here, where he's just like, I'm hearing voices and the voices are disappearing one by one. So I'm thinking that maybe if Kobe does, you know, if he is branded like a traitor by the Marines and he does join, say, like, Shanks' crew or something, I imagine in the future we're going to get, like, a big arc of Kobe becoming, like, incredibly strong and, like, have this, you know, crazy strong Haki ability, and it's, like, super unique and lets him do some kind of crazy thing, you know, kind of like Professor X from X-Men. Again, we get another, like, honor among enemies scene. You know, Buggy is flying Jinbei and Luffy And the guy, I believe his title was the Surgeon of Death, he rocks up and he's like, hey, give me them, I'm a doctor, I'll take care of them. And he says something like, Straw Hat might be an enemy of mine, but we still share a bond. It'll only be boring if he dies here. Another one of those great honor among enemy things that I really enjoy. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is, if you look at his submarine, the little icon, the little like emoji thing or whatever you want to call it, it looks like a cog with a face in it or something. I'm pretty sure that's the same image that Ace has on his hat, right? Like he had like the smiling one and then the frowning one on his hat. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of greater symbolism to that symbol. And I mean, there would have to be, because it is painted on the side of the submarine, right? All right, next we have this panel here, and we see the head marine guy. I keep forgetting his rank, otherwise I would call him by his real rank. So we get the head marine guy, and we see that he has some kind of special power. I feel as if his power wasn't really explained in this one, which, you know, I don't think was meant to be the point anyway. I think it was just meant to be like a, hey, this guy has a lot of power, and we'll kind of see more on that later on. But in this panel specifically, they are talking about, you know, Whitebeard's ability, and he's like earthquaking everything and like destroying everything. And I believe this is after Blackbeard has stolen that ability, which is pretty crazy that Blackbeard now has 2 devil fruit abilities, but we'll talk about that later. And the head guy says, there is a deeper meaning to our presence here. Our justice will never be destroyed. Don't speak so lightly of sinking this place, you pup. And there's also a line that says, like, you know, we're in the middle of everything, and, you know, our place here is to, like, protect everyone, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I wonder if there's any kind of deeper meaning to that when they say that there is a deeper meaning to our presence here. I wonder if that is like, you know, on first, just like face value, it's like, hey, our deeper meaning of being here is we are at the center of the Grand Line and we're here to protect everyone. But I wonder if there's a deeper meaning, like underneath the island or inside of the fortress or something like that, there's something that they're protecting. You know, maybe there's like a poneglyph in there or something that they're protecting, or maybe, you know, that's secretly where One Piece is. They've collected all the information from Gold Roger and they've already gone and collected it and brought it back here or something. You know, I highly doubt that, but I'm just saying, I wonder if there's some kind of deeper meaning to this when they say that there is a deeper meaning to our presence here. Right, he literally says there's a deeper meaning here. Okay, this next panel I feel as if it gives more credence to my theory that One Piece isn't treasure at all. It's not gold or jewels or valuables or whatever. One Piece is information, right? Like, if you're new to the channel, my big theory about One Piece is that it is the lost history of the world, right? One Piece is all about information that Gold Roger collected and has compiled, so when somebody else comes and finds it, because after he died he knew that he wasn't going to be able to like release all the information in a good way or whatever, so once someone finds it they can like share it out to the world. That's my theory, that One Piece is actually information and has nothing to do with treasure. And in this one we see it, or like what I think, and we see Whitebeard and he says, "It's not you. The man Roger is waiting for is definitely not you, Teach. There are those who inherited Roger's will, and one day someone will appear who will inherit Ace's will. As long as that bloodline survives, their flames will never die. That will has been passed down from long ago, and in the future, someday a man will appear bearing the weight of centuries of history on his shoulders to challenge the world. Sengoku, your world government is afraid of the coming war that will engulf the world. I wasn't interested, but when someone finds the treasure, the world will be shaken to its core. Somebody will find it. That day will certainly come." Now, the big takeaway here is when somebody finds that treasure, the world will be shaken to its core, right? Why is that? Why could possibly, like, if One Piece is just gold and treasure and jewels and shit, why would the world be shaken to its core if someone found it, right? It'd just be one guy would get really rich. So it has to be information. It has to be that lost information that the government is trying so hard to like suppress. As far as I'm concerned, like that's really it, right? Like that has to be, like, why would finding One Piece shake the world if it was just treasure? It has to be the information. It has to be the lost history of the world from the poneglyphs. Or maybe, like, you know, I don't know how the poneglyphs are going to work in the coming story, but it could very well be like the final poneglyph or something. But more specifically, I bet it's all the information from them compiled into like a fucking book or something. I don't know. I really enjoyed this scene here where we see like Gold Roger and Whitebeard, and they're just like sitting underneath the sakura trees, just like having a drink, having a meal or whatever. And, you know, it goes on with like what Ace was saying about how when two men have a drink together, they become brothers and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Again, it's one of those like honor among enemies things, you know. In this scene, I believe that Gold Roger already knows that he's going to die, and he's, you know, talking to Whitebeard about like, hey, you know, I'm gonna die. Do you want me to tell you some good information? Do you want me to tell you about this, that, or the other? And, you know, we get the part where Whitebeard is like, what is the will of the D? And Gold Roger's like, oh, you want to know? I'll tell you. But then we don't find out as the reader, you know, we just know that Whitebeard knows now. This one I thought was really interesting as well. I like the fact that they, you know, made Blackbeard have a big, like, plan. Because when we first meet Blackbeard, one of the things is I would have never in my life guessed that he would have become such an antagonist or like a villain or whatever. I would have never in my life guessed that he would have had so much prevalence to the story. He would have had so much to do with so much in the story, and I wouldn't have presumed that he would become like, you know, the main villain. And it was interesting to find out that, like, you know, he did this, he did that, he did, you know, all of these things in order to break into Impel Down, in order to like rescue this like crew of like bad people. Alright, and now we're getting into the sadder panels. So we've got this one here. I really liked this one. It's when, you know, Whitebeard is like, he does the earthquake, he like separates the Marines from the pirates and is letting them escape, and he is about to like sacrifice himself, and he gives his like captain's final orders or whatever, and he's like, everyone get to your ship, everyone leave, we've got what we've come here for, my time has come, I'm an old guy, I'm sick, I'm ready, like this is it, I'm ready for this. And like Ace bows down and he's like, you know, getting ready to like, I don't know, apologize, thank you, fucking say goodbye, all that kind of stuff. And Whitebeard says, I don't need your words, but let me ask you one thing. Was I a good father? And Ace says, of course. Now, one of the big things about this is it reminds me it's exactly the same thing that Luffy says when Nami is at Arlong Park and she's in the rain and she's like stabbing off her tattoo. And she's like, Luffy, help me. And Luffy says, of course I will. Of course I will help you. And it just like reminded me of that moment, which was like another just deeply emotional, probably one of the first like massive just emotional punches that you get. And then we get the same like wording here when he says, you know, of course you were a great father. And I really liked that. I really liked this whole thing. I didn't expect to like Whitebeard as much as I did. But I really enjoyed his whole thing of like, I just want a family, I want to be a great dad to all of these like lost children. And then we get this moment here. This is the moment that it all happens, that it all goes down. And there's some really clever piece of storytelling here that I wanted to bring up. And that was with the Vivre card or the Vivi card or whatever the hell that word is. Because like as the reader and as someone that like you know that this is a fantasy world and you know that like a lot of things are capable of happening, right? Like you know that one guy can be killed and then reborn as a phoenix, right? You know that one guy is made out of light, you know, this guy's made out of magma, Ace is made out of fire, you know. Like there's so many things that can happen and change. Like the Okama person can like stick her fingers into you and change up your hormones and heal you or get rid of your pain or blah 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 blah. So there's all these things that like as the reader you're like, okay, Ace just got punched through the chest, his insides are all melted, but he could still very well be fine. You know, for all we know, he could just turn into ashes and then come back to life, right? But the way that they get around that is with that card, because we know that that symbolizes the life force of the person. So as we see it and we see it fizzle out and like get destroyed, we know that it's all over. Like we know that there's no like absurd fantasy magic that is going to save this guy. This guy is now dead. And we know that like it comes across, it's like, hey guys, like Ace is dead. And then we'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, Ace is dead, sure, whatever. And they'll be like, no, guys, like, Ace is actually dead. And the way they do that is with that card to really symbolize the seriousness of it. It's like, hey, look, this guy isn't coming back, like, he's dead. There is no trickety trick, there is no anything like that. It's just, this guy is dead. So in terms of like reinforcing that seriousness, it was really cleverly done. Really, really well done with just that piece of writing tool, which is something that I have been praising One Piece for ages, right? Like the tools that they use to write to help them tell whatever story they want to tell. Talk about it all the time. And this is a great example of it. And then that leads us on to this one, where he's just dying. Oh my god, I'm tearing up just thinking about this. And he's like hugging onto Luffy, and he's just like, thank you for loving me. And I was just like, oh, my heart. But one of the big things that I want to point out here is, if you see the two little like faces that he's making there, you know, you see that he's sad, you see that he's sad that he's dying, but then he just starts smiling because he's got his brother in his arms, his brother came for him. It showed how much Luffy loved him. It reinforced that like someone cared about him and wanted him to be alive and wanted him to be in the world. Didn't care that he was Gold Roger's son, didn't care about the bloodline in him. And then, you know, I'll jump into the next panel. And then the next panel, you see that he's died, but he's got like the smile on his lips because he's grateful that he was loved, because he died knowing that he was loved. And I was just like, oh, my heart. And we see it like register on Luffy's face, and he's just like, and then you just see like the scream come out. And then in this next one, you just see like him scream, and you're like, if you were watching this on the anime, this moment would just be like so heartbreaking. This moment would just be like soul crushing, just like shattering to watch and to hear him scream and to like watch his brother die. It would just be, oh man. You really got to admire Oda for going there though, right? Like to not be afraid to kill off his characters, to not be afraid to emotionally scar his readers. And, you know, they say that the best character deaths, or the best, like, you know, things like this, is the stuff that, like, it hurts you to write it yourself. It hurts you to kill off that character. It hurts you to cause that emotional damage to, you know, Luffy and whatever. Those are the best storytelling moments. And, you know, I feel like this was definitely one of those moments that probably hurt Oda's soul when he was writing it, when he was drawing it. You know, when he was drawing Luffy's face, as he just like, you just see the look in his eyes, you see the white, you see the just soul crushed look about him, and you're like, fuck, so well done, but also heartbreaking. All right, but moving on to something more lighter, let's talk about this scene here. So this is when Luffy is running up to the platform to save Ace, and Garp jumps in, and he's like, you know, Luffy's like, Grandpa, please move. And he says, I'm not moving an inch, Luffy. I'm a Vice Admiral of the Marines, right? And as the reader, we're there, like, you know, we've been watching Garp kind of struggle, and, you know, I didn't really save a lot of the panels, but you see, like, as things are progressing, you know, you'll just see, like, a look from Garp, and he's just, like, you see the pained look, you know that he wants the pirates to come and save Ace, you know, he cares so much about Ace as, like, you know, a grandchild or as a child, and he really doesn't want him to die. And there's so many times where he's just kind of like, you just see a look, you just see something, and he's just like, God damn, I hope someone comes and saves him. And in this moment, like, because everybody knows that Ace and Luffy is his grandchildren, so he has to be really careful about the way that he, you know, helps them, I suppose you could say. And in this moment, he jumps in front of him, and he puts on the, like, act of, like, I am, you know, a Marine Vice Admiral. I cannot let you through. You are my enemy. You are a pirate. Like, I will not let you through, right? And he's there, and you see him, and it's the stance. He's in a fighting stance, and, like, the ground is shaking as he's like, yeah, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to stop you from saving Ace. But then in this next panel, you see, and he's there, and he's looking really intense. And he has the thought back to Ace where he says, you know, right now, I want to live. And he just, like, closes his eyes, and you just see Luffy come and punch him, and he's just like, lets it happen. He's like, you know, I put on the show that I was going to stop you, and, you know, you've already beaten up so many other people, so it shouldn't become as a shock that you're able to beat me up too. And he just, like, closes his eyes and just lets it happen, and he gets, like, knocked off the platform. Loved it. I actually really enjoyed that moment. I really enjoyed that internal struggle of Garp, and, like, wanting to do the right thing, but also wanting to do the right thing by his family and save his family, and sacrificing himself to do it. Really enjoyed that. And just on that moment that we were talking about with Garp seeing the flashback of Ace saying that I want to live in this moment, we see it here, and we see Ace specifically say, at a time like this, I want to live. And the very next panel is like Garp's face, and he's just like, oh my god, I want you to live too. And he's just like struggling so hard internally. And it's just really great to do these kind of things as a reread, and just to like see this like little foreshadowing moments with Ace saying like, I want to live in this moment, you know, I'm so happy, I can't stop my tears, I want to live. And then you just see like Garp like, oh man, struggling with it. And then in the very next couple of scenes, we see Luffy come and like knock him off the thing, and Garp just let it happen. This one here shocked me when like Squadro, or whatever that guy's name is, stabs him and like betrays him because he thinks that Whitebeard has like sold him out to the Marines. But more than that, when like Whitebeard immediately forgives him, he's like, you know, you were lost, my son, you were lied to, but like I immediately forgive you. That part was really crazy. I was like, oh crap, what's gonna happen next? Especially because like at this moment when he's like stabbed through the chest, I really liked him at this point. I was like, oh wow, you know what, he's smart, he knows what he's doing, he's like a good guy, he's a good father, you know. So at this point, like, I did like him. So when this happened, I was like, oh no. This part was really interesting because we see more about Luffy's Haki. Specifically, I believe this is the one that the people in Skypiea had, where like they could like focus or whatever, and they could see into the future and predict each other's moves. So Luffy saw into the future and predicted that Mihawk was going to cut off his hand if he like kept going in the direction he was going. So it's interesting to watch Luffy's abilities slowly evolve over time, and it'll be really interesting when he like finally learns how to harness it properly. This part here I thought was really interesting and really important for the storytelling of the One Piece world. Specifically, she is able to hit Smoker's smoke body with her Haki, and I'm not sure if it is, I believe it is specifically her like Conqueror's Haki that lets her hit Smoker's body, because he says down the bottom, so this is the Kija's Haki, which implies that other people's Hakis can't hit him. So that means that Luffy, being that he has the same Haki ability that she does, must be able to attack other people's, Logia type devil fruit bodies. So like that guy made out of light, Luffy should be able to hit him if he can harness his Haki properly. Or the guy made out of magma, or, you know, whatever, the other fella made out of lightning. Another one of the parts that I really liked is, after Luffy, I thought I'd save the panel, but apparently I didn't. After Luffy, like, goes and he talks to Whitebeard, and he's like, oh, you're Whitebeard? Well, I'm gonna be king of the pirates, so I'm coming for you. And, like, he's just like, goes and speaks to Whitebeard, and is just like, hey, like, just so you're aware, I'm coming for it. I'm coming for One Piece, like, don't get in my way kind of thing. And he just, like, talks mad smack to, like, Whitebeard. I really enjoyed that. And then he's like, I'm going to go and save Ace. And it's after Luffy just, like, stopped Crocodile from stabbing Whitebeard in the back, right? So Luffy just stops that from happening. And then he says to Whitebeard, he's like, hey, I'm also here to save Ace, but I'm coming for you. I'm coming for your title. I'm coming for One Piece. I'm going to be king of the pirates. And then in this scene, you see Whitebeard, and he's just like, Marco, don't you dare let that boy die. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed, like, the respect, or the, like, I don't know, the, like, love that Whitebeard instantly had for Luffy when Luffy came and was like, I'm gonna be the greatest. Alright, a couple more things we can talk about. I thought I'd save the panel, but apparently I didn't, of when Whitebeard dies. Right, so this is something that I really liked. When Whitebeard dies, and he, like, his body gives out and he dies or whatever, and he's, like, still standing, I really enjoyed that, like, symbolic gesture of, like, he didn't fall in battle, he died standing on his feet kind of thing. That's very symbolic, and I did really enjoy that. And I thought it was really interesting when Teach or Blackbeard, they, like, throw the blanket or whatever over Whitebeard, and then he goes under it, and whatever he does in there, he steals his ability to cause earthquakes. So that was really interesting, and I feel like that opens up a can of worms. But I'm going to say that I don't think that we're going to find other people with 2 Devil Fruit user abilities. I have a feeling that it is specifically just Blackbeard that will get that. And I feel like that is specifically there to make him more of a villain, to make him more of an antagonist, to make him more just like threatening as the only man in the world to have 2 devil fruit abilities. That's just something that I presume. Obviously, I don't know if that's true or not, but I would very much see that happening. One of the other things I don't think that I've talked about so far is I really enjoy how Buggy is like accidentally becoming famous. You know what I mean? Or like accidentally gaining all this respect and pride from his crew. Like he will, I don't know, go to run away from a fight or something, and his crew's like, oh wow, look at Buggy, he's forgiving all of those people and he's choosing not to kill them. What a brilliant man, what a brave man to just let his enemies live. You know, it takes a man to like kill your enemies, but it takes an even bigger man to let them live. You know, and it's just like little things like that. And it's just the way that his crew keeps interpreting all of these things, and it's like slowly making him famous and slowly building his adoration from his crew. I did really enjoy that, and it was like happening ever since Impel Down, I believe. So I honestly think something will come from that, but I did really enjoy it. One of the other things I wanted to bring up is I wonder if the fact that Ace is Gold Roger's kid, and the fact that Luffy is the son of the dragon, and I don't think that we know who Luffy's mother is yet, I wonder if that is why Garp was so intense about their training and so intense about them becoming Marines, is because he knew that like their lineage was from these people that were like revolutionaries and pirates. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. To me, it makes a lot of sense for Garp to be like, I'm going to make you strong, and I'm going to make sure that you're a good person. You are not going to be like your parents. But anyway, I'm going to start wrapping up this video. Like I said, I've got a massive review coming up. I want to review like the first 600 chapters or whatever, and just like kind of talk about how I thought everything was happening, kind of my theories and thoughts at the beginning, how everything's changed, you know, all the characters, all of the predictions I have and all of that, and answer some questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try and chuck them in the video, you know, if you want that, of course. In terms of this arc, I really enjoyed it. It was a really, really great arc. It was like a great end to the like beginning of the red line, or the beginning of the grand line coming up to the red line, and it does symbolize such a direct like slice the story in half, right? Like it is such a great symbolic gesture. And I've said it before, like the last 100 chapters really have felt like they have been like ramping up. You know, things have been becoming more intense, things have been becoming more adult. And, you know, this feels like a great culmination of that with Ace's death and with Whitebeard's death. And it feels like there is just so much that can happen in the future because of like, you know, just Luffy's emotional state and how this will affect him in the future, and how teamwork will be affected in the future. And now that we know that they're willing to kill anyone off, you know, anything can happen coming up, right? So I'm really excited to see what happens next. You know, it came out of the blue. I did not expect it. I did discuss it before, but I didn't believe for a moment that they would kill Ace. So when it like actually happened, I was just like, fuck, that is just wow. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, join me next week for next week's video. And if you have any thoughts, theories, questions, love, hate, anything you want to throw at me, you know, the comment section is down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until we meet again, thank you very much.